Hello, we're here.
Hello.
We're doing the audiobook again. Welcome to the audiobook.
Welcome to The Conquest of Pies Part 4.
4? Is it 4?
It's 4.
It's a lot. We've been doing this for a long time now.
We have been, and it's fucking whipped. It's been so much fun. It's been a good time. Just get the chat going.
Oh boy.
Yeah, this is gonna be a good time.
What chapter are we on? Remind me again.
Oh, we're on chapter 9, The Need for Luxury.
Oh, I am very excited now. Well, I was excited before, but the idea that we're going to talk about luxury in a post-revolutionary world, or at least the concept of luxury 130 years ago, I want to take bets on like what we think luxury is going to be framed as. What do you think luxury is going to be in this chapter?
Smells.
Just smells. The rich people. Sorry, I guess there's no rich people, but the luxury is that you get to like have little things that you smell.
I mean like perfumes.
Oh, okay. Okay, I see.
Fanciness.
Your food can't have smell unless you it's luxurious.
Yeah.
I like this. I think yeah, I don't know. I guess I worry that it's going to be Kropotkins. I'm like worried that I'm going to say the wrong name now.
Kropotkin.
It is Kropotkin, right? Okay. I was like, no way.
Just
there's
always
no way.
Remember.
Yeah, I was like, there's no way his name has kin in it. But
no, you have to remember that it does in fact
have kin in it.
You have to always remember that one can be a Kropotkin.
No,
and if you're an anarcho-communist, that's what you are.
No.
All anarcho-communists are Kropotkinis. I'm saying this now.
Oh, I hate this. My whole thing that I think is gonna be him being kind of sexist. Is what I think luxury is gonna be. Is like
this is why I've worn the T-shirt that I've worn today is a T-shirt that says "Princesses Against Patriarchy," because that to me is the vibe I want to bring to this. You know.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah, I think we gotta just wait, hang on. Let's get a pie count.
What? Oh,
let's get a pie count. Money count.
Oh, right. So we're at about to be 3. We're now at 5.3 million gold.
Fuck yes, we are. That's what we like to see.
I don't even remember what our goal was. It was like 7 million or something.
It's 7.
Yeah, and we were doing about 2 million per session. So I think this might be our last one for like at least a bit.
Yeah, once this one's done, we get to actually start playing the game again.
Wow, the video game will happen next time, hopefully, if I don't fuck up the pies too many times.
Thanks for everyone's patience with our ridiculous...
No, this is the best part of the Fable 3 playthrough. I'm telling you this now.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, tell me about luxury, Brianna.
1 second, I will.
1.
All right, then let's go. Chapter 9, The Need for Luxury. Man, however, is not a being whose exclusive purpose in life is eating, drinking, and providing a shelter for himself. As soon as his material wants are satisfied, other needs of an artistic character will thrust themselves forward the more ardently. Aims of life vary with each and every individual, and the more society is civilized, the more will individuality be developed, and the more will desires be varied. Disagree. Even today, we see men and women denying themselves necessaries to acquire mere trifles, to obtain some particular gratification or some intellectual or material enjoyment. A Christian or an ascetic, may disapprove of these desires for luxury. But it is precisely these trifles that break the monotony of existence and make it agreeable. Would life, with all its inevitable sorrows, be worth living if, besides daily work, man could never obtain a single pleasure according to his individual tastes? If we wish for a social revolution, it is no doubt in the first place to give bread to all, to transform this execrable in society, in which we can every day see robust workmen dangling their arms for want of an employer who will exploit them, women and children wandering shelterless at night, whole families reduced to dry bread, men, women, and children dying for want of care and even for want of food. It is to put an end to these iniquities that we rebel. But we expect more from the revolution. We see that the worker compelled to struggle painfully for bare existence is reduced to ignorance of these higher delights, the highest within man's reach, of science and especially of scientific discovery, of art and especially of artistic creation. It is in order to obtain these joys for all, which are now reserved to a few, in order to give leisure and the possibility of developing intellectual capacities, that the social revolution must guarantee daily bread to all. After bread has been secured, leisure is the supreme aim. No doubt nowadays, when hundreds and thousands of human beings are in need of bread, coal, clothing, and shelter, luxury is a crime. To satisfy it, the worker's child must go without bread. But in a society in which we can all eat sufficiently, the needs which we consider luxuries today will be more keenly felt. And as all men do not and cannot resemble one another, the variety of tastes and needs is the chief guarantee of human progress, there will always be, and it is desirable that there should always be, men and women whose desire will go beyond those of ordinary individuals in some particular direction. Everybody does not need a telescope, because even if learning were general, there are people who prefer examining things through a microscope to studying the starry heavens. Some like statues, some pictures. A particular individual has no other ambition than to possess an excellent piano, while another is pleased with an accordion. The tastes vary, but the artistic needs exist in all. In our present poor capitalistic society, the man who has artistic needs cannot satisfy them unless he is heir to a large fortune, or by dint of hard work appropriates to himself an intellectual capital which will enable him to take up a liberal profession. Still, he cherishes the hope of someday satisfying his tastes more or less, and for this reason he reproaches the idealist communist society with having the material life of an individual as their sole aim. In your communal stores you may perhaps have bread for all, he says to us, but you will not have beautiful pictures, optical instruments, luxurious furniture, artistic jewelry. In short, the many things that minister to the infinite variety of human tastes. And in this way you suppress the possibility of obtaining anything besides the bread and meat which the commune can offer to all, and the grey linen in which all your lady citizens will be dressed. These are the objections which all communist systems have to consider, and which the founders of new societies, established in American deserts, never understood. They believed that if the community could procure sufficient cloth to dress all its members, a music hall in which the quote unquote brothers could strum a piece of music or act a play from time to time, it was enough. They forgot that the feeling for art existed in the agriculturist as well as in the burgher. And notwithstanding that the expression of artistic feeling varies according to the difference in culture, in the main it remains the same. In vain did the community guarantee the common necessaries of life. In vain did it suppress all education that pretended to develop individuality. In vain did it eliminate all reading save the Bible. Individual tastes broke forth and caused general discontent. Quarrels arose when somebody proposed to buy a piano or scientific instruments, and the elements of progress flagged. The society could only exist on condition that it crushed all individual feeling, all artistic tendency, and all development. Will the anarchist commune be impelled by the same direction? Evidently not, if it understands that while it produces all that is necessary to material life, it must also strive to satisfy all manifestations of the human mind.
That was short.
That's section one.
No.
We still have a second section.
Okay. Well, I mean, I agree with like 99% of the things he said.
Tell me the 1%.
The thing that you were like disagree.
Yes, that's true. What I think ought to be said there is that societies will always develop individual and differing tastes among its people. That is the inevitability of society. People are unique. Diversity is a real thing on, like, on obviously an identity based level, but also on a just simple, like, Claire, what do you do for fun?
What's fun?
Hmm?
Said what's fun. Right now I have a little passion project, like a game that I, throw a couple hours into programming or doing art for here or there.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, I play exorbitant amounts of Pokemon right now.
Hell yeah.
Uh, other people do various things. We are not the most different people in the world, because I also have a game that I put time into. But
Oh,
even among us, there is difference. Um, and tomorrow I may be working on the game, and you may be playing Pokemon, right? Like,
right. Oh,
people's
you
needs
mean
change over
tabletop
time.
RPG, right? I thought
Yeah.
you took up programming for a second. I was like, whoa, Brianna, you didn't tell me this.
No, I don't. I don't do that. I tried to
Okay,
program.
this
Did I
is
ever tell you I tried to program once in grade
really?
11? Yeah, I
I
did.
think you might have told me
I
this.
took a computer. I could took a computer programming class in my high school.
Uh,
The teacher didn't know how to program, and neither did
oh
any of us.
no. So that went really good. I can see how maybe that didn't give the best impression of programming. Though you know
It
what
did
else
not.
does not give a great impression of programming is the tech industry.
Yeah, that's what I've heard.
Anyways, your tabletop RPG will probably rule as your
Thank
other
you.
ones have so far.
Thank you. I think that your video game will also probably roll.
It'll probably never come
Um,
out. It is like literally 10 years of a team project and I'm just going to do it by myself.
fair enough.
Um, I will die
I
before this thing comes out, and I'll be happy about that because then no one can judge my art, and I win.
That's not how you win. That's how you lose. Um, let your art be judged. But a thing
I'm
that's really interesting
infallible
to
though.
me. Hmm?
Nothing. Go on.
I was just gonna say a thing that's really interesting to me, and maybe this will, we'll talk a little bit more about this after the second section. Is like when he talks about like a society that like doesn't value artistic expression can't survive.
Hmm.
Um, and I think to a degree, there's definitely like, I think if you were to compare that to like, Soviet society and stuff like that, I think that there's a kinship there.
Hmm.
But also, there was art in Soviet Russia. This is the thing that I think is maybe not understood, is that art was like a thing, was like a part of Soviet society. Maybe not have been as well funded, you know, um,
Hmm.
and stuff like, or it may not have been blockbusters in the way that American films were, but they still did have art in those societies, and many of that art is like really important still today. Um, which is to say, um, art does need to be a core, I think, part of any revolution. Um,
Hmm.
and even if I think that likely Kropotkin would have a lot of negative things to say about the Soviet Union, I will say that they actually did, in fact, have some of that. Um, I also think that, a thing that maybe we're coming more to terms with, especially in the world of film, which I've been thinking about a lot because I've been reading, or started recently, Reel to Reel by Bell Hooks, which is one of her novels, or one of her books of theory that's about um, like film and like race and gender in film.
Hmm.
Um, but just thinking about film in general, like I think a lot about like that interview with George Lucas where he talks about how he felt that in some ways his friends who were creating films in the Soviet Union had more creative freedom than he did.
Right. We
Um,
both listened to that quote. I'm assuming from the Star Wars podcast we listened to.
I'd seen it before that point,
Oh,
but
really?
yes,
Okay. Well,
that's
I
yeah,
learned that from the Star Wars podcast.
yes, we did. Yeah, I mean, this is the everyone go listen to A More Civilized Age. Shit slaps. But
It's the only way
yeah,
that
like
Star Wars is consumable and palatable, IMO.
I disagree, but
That's why we're
it
different
does make it
people.
more fun. Hmm?
That's why we're different people.
That's why we're different people. But it is interesting to think about, like, you know, a lot of what Lucas said was basically like they can't criticize the government, sure, but they don't have to make a film for profit. Their
Right.
profit motive does not have to be. They can make like experimental weird films, which is why a lot of Soviet art is still really influential. Like, obviously, I think something that has like really, really heavily influenced, and that not just the film but also the book is like obviously, um, what's it called? Roadside Picnic, the invention, the first kind of creation of the Stalker series,
Hmm.
which has now of course become films and games, and I believe even the original film was a Soviet one as well. This is like one example of many of like Soviet art that left this, even found its way out of the Soviet Union and found a kind of following in other areas as well. Um, because the goal was not, because they could be really interesting and unique and do some really different things because they weren't trying to make money off of it,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah. I feel like I'm trying to think of like um how you would even have a society without art, because I feel like it's hyperbole that Kropotkin's like is speaking in hyperbole. You could never have a society without art because it would not be society without art. but
Yeah,
but like I think like I literally cannot imagine a society without art,
I
even
can.
the worst of them.
I can imagine a society that does not. I can't imagine a society without art. I can imagine a society that does not value or support art.
But that's
Um,
like different.
yeah, you're right, and it's not that different from the society we live in.
Right.
Um,
We do live in a society.
right, but a society that doesn't give people the tools that they need to make art,
Yeah.
which I think is what Kropotkin is primarily talking about here.
Yeah.
Right,
I mean,
the
that
the
would
commune
be
that won't buy a piano or a
uh-huh.
microscope. You know.
That's very much like North American, and at least like speaking to what I know, Canadian like
Yeah.
culture is like you can't pay your bills reliably as an artist.
Yeah.
So do we value art in the same way?
Right. Yeah.
Or
It
like
it
what
kind
kind
of
of art
agrees.
do we value?
Right.
I guess is actually the question.
I think something that is interesting here is, I think an argument that gets made about art is the idea, or that gets made that's like pro art, is like art is not luxury, it's necessity, right? Um, which is, I think, an argument that gets made to justify why art is important. Um, and I'm interested in the way that Kropotkin here is like, actually, art is luxury, and luxury is still
Hmm. It's
a
good.
necessity.
Right. Yeah.
Which I think is a much more compelling argument. Because like, as much as art can be politically important, um, I still do, and I've gotten more so convinced of the idea that art does not meaningfully change a lot of the political stakes of things.
What do you
Maybe I'm
mean?
not quite this cynical, but I do think a lot about that quote of someone talking about, during the Vietnam War, every respectable artist in the country was heavily against the war, and
Mm.
all of our art had the laser focused against the Vietnam War, had about the um, importance of a pie dropped from a ladder. Um, like it basically did nothing. Um,
Right.
Vietnam ended because it became unprofitable. And people did go out in the streets, and it became difficult to, push public opinion. But like, how much did art affect that? I think it probably affected it more than that person is probably giving it credit for. And I have to check on who the quote was there. Um, but like, thinking of art as not necessarily as something that sometimes does have to have a purpose is, I think, good. But also, art without purpose is still valuable, and luxury, in the same way, is still necessary. And like, also such a better pitch of like, look how cool our shit is. Look how much cool, fun shit you can have. Like for real,
I
you
feel
know?
like art does influence just at a slower pace than I feel like we think it does.
Right.
Um
That's a good point.
because like if you look at like generational differences with the way that like art has influenced generations rather than like spans of years, I feel like uh I don't know, just like thinking about now, like think about like modern media. I feel like there's a lot of revolutionary stories. Like every single thing is about overcoming an empire. In like if you've watched any kids TV show, it becomes extremely serious eventually, and you're overthrowing some evil, like basically dictator. And it's
Hmm.
like that wasn't kids TV shows 20 years ago. How is that going to change how people view authority in like 20 or 30 years?
I see what you mean. I'm with you. I think art more reflects than anything.
Yeah, of
I
course.
don't think it's a coincidence that I think every single piece of media that I've seen that's come out in the past, like say 10 years,
Hmm.
starts from the place of society is deeply broken. And I don't just mean that in terms of leftist pieces of media,
Oh,
liberal
yeah.
pieces of media, conservative pieces of
Yeah.
media. Every single piece of media I've seen that's come out in the past 10 years that I can think of has in it, just kind of almost taken
Yeah.
for granted, this shit is broken. Um,
Yeah.
and I think that's a reflection of the general psyche. At which point now we're basically like, society is desperately and deeply broken, but hey, there's nothing we can do about it, or there's no better world, or what have you, right? Um,
Right, but that's
and
like
that's
kind
I
of what
think
I
where things
mean, right?
diverge.
Like this is the
Yeah.
equivalent of like it's not it's not hitting us yet, but I really feel like it is going to hit us in 10 years. Maybe that's like me being a little overly optimistic. Maybe it's me like shirking the reality of like how are people actually going to feel about this in 10 years versus like why would that be any different than now. But my
Uh huh.
feeling is because the way that like people grow up with ideas is different than people consuming ideas as an adult. Because like I can like look at a piece of media that has a thing like as a commentary on society, and as a child I would just go, huh, yes, this is extremely wrong and we should never be doing this. But
Hmm.
as an adult, I can be like, I agree with this point, and the end of
Hmm.
thought, or I disagree. I don't know. I
I
don't know
do.
if I'm making pure sense right now.
No, I think you are. I think as a society, um, I think that our media is more influential on children than on adults.
Yeah, that's kind of
And
what
so
I'm saying.
I think that there is I think that that does make sense. I will say, um, and you know, I am a fun I'm a pretty cynical. Individually and interpersonally, I can be fairly optimistic about the state of things and other people and such.
Hmm.
Society wise, I'm a very cynical person.
Mm.
And so I think I like the optimism and I want to lean into the optimism. I do fundamentally believe that if every piece on of media in the world, or just in the West, was like basically with the most effective, you know, work, like possible, looking at the viewer and saying, um, revolution is not only um a good idea but also extremely necessary and we should all do it now. Um and was like doing that as effectively as possible, I think you maybe get a riot.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think you I don't think you get anything out of that. And that's a very
Yeah.
cynical view. Um
Well,
but
cynicism is what grounds us, but optimism is what pushes us forward.
I mean
IMO.
that's why we need both. Um but let's talk more about luxury,
Yeah,
huh?
let's do luxury. I like luxury.
All right, part 2. We frankly confess that when we think of the abyss of poverty and suffering that surrounds us, when we hear the heartrending cry of the worker walking the streets begging for work, we are loath to discuss the question: how will men act in a society whose members are properly fed to satisfy certain individuals desirous of possessing a piece of Sèvres china or a velvet dress? We are tempted to answer, let us make sure of bread to begin with, we shall see to china and velvet later on. But we must recognize that man has other needs besides food. And as the strength of anarchy lies precisely in that it understands all human faculties and all passions, and ignores none, we shall, in a few words, explain how man can contrive to satisfy all his intellectual and artistic needs. Have a good night, Juliet. Thanks for coming
Good
by.
night.
We have already mentioned that by working 4 or 5 hours a day till the age of 45 or 50, man could easily produce all that is necessary to guarantee comfort to society.
Oh,
Claire, do you want to address
Juliet.
the VODs?
Yeah, those are uploaded on Sundays to YouTube. You can go to we have like a constant URL now because YouTube introduced
Can
handles.
you would
It,
you
it's
wanna do you wanna link it in the chat?
uh yeah, sure. Can you link it in the chat? It's youtube.com/at salt dash cravings. Um this is our constant URL. Every episode up until like us right now live is up there, and this will be up on Sunday. Um So
We
yeah,
should
if
link
you
that directly.
yeah, we should
More
I
places.
will. Okay.
Let
That's
me just make
probably a
sure it's the
smart
right
idea.
link.
You know,
It is the right
you make
link.
a very
Okay.
good point, Brianna.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, hell
They're
yeah.
all there.
Enjoy. We'll catch ya at the next good night. uh all right. Luxury. Hit me with more luxury, Brianna.
Absolutely, I will. Absolutely. Okay. We've already mentioned that by working 4 or 5 hours a day till the age of 45 or 50, man could easily produce all that is necessary to guarantee comfort to society. But the day's work of a man accustomed to toil does not consist of hours. It is a 10 hours day for 300 days a year and lasts all his life. Of course, when a man is harnessed to a machine, his health is soon undermined and his intelligence is blunted. But when man has the possibility of varying occupations, and especially of alternating manual with intellectual work, he can remain occupied without fatigue and even with pleasure for 10 or 12 hours a day. Consequently, the man who will have done 4 or 5 hours of manual work necessary for his existence will have before him 5 or 6 hours which he will seek to employ according to his tastes. And these 5 or 6 hours a day will fully enable him to procure for himself, if he associates with others, all he wishes for, in addition to the necessaries guaranteed to all. He will discharge first his task in the field, the factory, and so on, which he owes to society as his contribution to the general population. And he will employ the second half of his day, his week, or his year to satisfy his artistic or scientific needs or his hobbies. Thousands of societies will spring up to gratify every taste and every possible fancy. Some, for example, will give their hours of leisure to literature. They will then form groups comprising authors, composers, printers, engravers, draftsmen, all pursuing a common aim, the propagation of ideas that are dear to them. Nowadays, an author knows that there is a beast of burden, the worker, to whom, for the sum of a few shillings a day, he can entrust the printing of his books. But he hardly cares to know what a printing office is like. If the compositor suffers from lead poisoning, and if the child who sees to the machine dies of anemia, are there not other poor wretches to replace them? But then But when there will be no more starvelings ready to sell their work for a pittance, when the exploited worker of today will be educated and will have his own ideas to put down in black and white and to communicate to others, then the authors and scientific men will be compelled to combine among themselves and with the printers in order to bring out their prose and their poetry. So long as men consider fustian and manual labor as a mark of inferiority, it will appear amazing to them to see an author setting up his own book in type. For has he not got a gymnasium or games by way of diversion? But when the opprobrium connected with manual labor has disappeared, when all will have to work with their hands, there being no one to do it for them, then the authors as well as their admirers will soon learn the art of handling composing sticks and type. They will know the pleasure of coming together, all admirers of the work to be printed, to set up the type, to shape it into pages, to take it in its virginal purity from the press. These beautiful machines, instruments of torture to the child who attends on them from morn till night, will be a source of enjoyment for those who will make use of them in order to give voice to the thoughts of their favorite author. Will literature lose by it? Will the poet be less a poet after having worked out of doors or helped with his hands to multiply his work? Will the novelist lose his knowledge of human nature after having rubbed shoulders with other men in the forest or the factory, in the laying out of a road or on a railway line? Can there be two answers to these questions? Maybe some books would be less voluminous, but then more will be said on fewer pages. Maybe fewer waste sheets will be published, but the matter printed will be more attentively read and more appreciated. The book will appeal to a larger circle of better educated readers who will be more competent to judge. Moreover, the art of printing that has so little progressed since Gutenberg is still in its infancy. It takes 2 hours to compose and type what is written in 10 minutes, but more expeditious methods of multiplying thought are being sought after and will be discovered. What a pity every author does not have to take his share in the printing of his works. What progress printing would have already made. We should no longer be using the movable letters as in the 17th century.
Damn right.
Fascinating.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, exactly what
Yeah.
you're gonna say.
It no longer takes 2 hours to compose a work to type.
Yeah.
Um,
Uh-huh.
is A, art would in fact be better if we had to do other work. C, not all labor is manual. D, no more. We don't do child labor anymore, so that's not a concern. Don't worry, Kropotkin. I know that's a big concern to you. We don't do child labor anymore.
Well,
I know people have been talking about bringing it back.
wait, what?
But we won't have to.
I've
What?
missed a lot on social media. Also, I'm pretty sure America outsources their child labor.
You're right. America absolutely outsources, as do we. We also do that.
Right, sorry.
So yes,
America
you're right.
as in most countries on the continent.
The West does outsource our child
Yeah.
labor. You're right.
Uh-huh. But there is
We can't
indeed
do it to
still
our
child
children.
labor. Right. Sigh, heaviest sigh possible. Yeah, but to say there is no child labor, I know that's not what you were saying, but
no, you're right. You're right. I'm saying that stuff has already changed to such a degree that, in fact, even the concessions of realism Kropotkin has to make are no longer relevant because society's just changed so much that real is so much less bleak even than the kind of very understandable and really not that bad kind of realism that Kropotkin has to acquiesce to.
Also, poets do have to do manual labor because it doesn't pay enough.
That's also true.
Not quite what he meant, I bet, but
right. And also, a thing that I've learned from having a hobby in a very, very small field is that people already do self-publishing all the time with all sorts of things. And there are ways. I mean, guilds have existed forever, right? Guilds have always been the idea of we try and uplift each other's work. We try and create a standard and market for ourselves and stuff.
So small printing houses that help with indie printing and whatnot.
Yeah. It's so we can have so much. In fact, I'd say we probably would have more art.
I would
And
almost
you know what
argue
else?
that we have the network set up already in a lot of, not every situation, but in a lot of situations. We have these networks set up. There are a lot of independent printing places that would probably love to help people. And I bet more
And
people would love to help those independent printing places.
and you know what else is true? We can just take the printing houses advertisers use. There will be no more advertising.
So you did come in a little strong there, Brianna, but I'm assuming you.
I know,
that.
I needed to. We will take shit from the advertisers.
We're gonna expropriate.
Do you know how much more work there will be when it doesn't have to be for profit? Do you know, instead of people whose job is to design ads, to put them together, to, put them in, to send them out, to design them, to draw art for them, to write them, to act
to make
in them.
The most consumable.
Right. They can make art instead.
Right, yeah.
Right. It's just, you know?
But how will you know about art if we don't have advertisers? Got you, Brianna.
There's still ways to know about it, I promise you that. And listen, if every piece of advertising was advertising... Do you want to know the secret? You want to know the fucking secret? People actually don't hate advertising when it's for art. I know this is true because things like E3 are very popular.
Also, like, literally just what... Like, I think a great example of this is the fucking Old Spice commercials with the like horse guy or whatever. That to me was art.
Right. It's true. Like, the thing is, there are still ways to, I'm sure, market and like share about art and stuff like that. But like someone putting up a poster about their new piece of art, it'll also be easier to advertise. It would also be easier to advertise if it wasn't so overloading all the time, you know? Like, why would I care about your shit? I've seen like 10 ads for burgers. And then there's also your poster. I'm just ignoring the whole poll that all of the posters are on. I guess I'm assuming that burger advertisements are in posters now.
Yeah, that's how the burgers do it. If you want the good burger, you go to the burger on the pole. That's actually my new restaurant, Burger on the Pole.
I think people might expect a little bit of a different experience than what you're providing.
Oh? Say more. Yeah?
What is Twitch's rules on
That's probably a good point. Amazon famously notorious for being very accepting.
Absolutely. I can't get past the like whole thing of like, no, you can make so much more art. You can have so much more art. And also, people will probably, have other things that they want to do with their time and stuff. It's possible. It's all very possible.
A better burger is possible.
A better burger is possible. No one wants to talk about this, but a better burger is possible. Better burger is possible.
I hate to tell you that Vancouver has some of the most obnoxious restaurants where there's like quote unquote gourmet burger stores where the whole menu is just burgers and the burger costs like $30.
But you want to know the truth? That's not a better burger. That's a worse burger. That's never been. I've had expensive burgers before. I've lived in Vancouver too, Claire.
This is what capitalism views as better, though.
But I'm saying a genuinely better burger is possible. I don't mean a better capitalist burger. I mean a better
socialist burger.
I mean I just mean a burger that's better.
A burger of socialism.
I mean a burger that tastes better. A burger that's better for you. A burger that's enjoyable and that has the good... Okay, here's the thing.
I'd like some socialism in my burger. Yes, please.
I want socialism in my burger. I also just want a burger that tastes good. I'm desperate for it. I'd rather have a better burger less often than a worse
Hmm.
burger more often. You know what I mean?
Hmm. I feel like I already
No,
have
you don't
it.
because you're vegetarian. But
I make my own burgers.
you're right. You're right. What do you
I don't
make
know why I
your
got so
burgers with?
defensive about making my burgers. What?
What do you make your burgers from?
Oh, it's like either fake meat. Like I don't know if you've had impossible. I was gonna say anyone as if I'm talking to like everybody all at once right now, as if anybody else can answer me besides you. I don't know if
Uh huh.
you've had impossible meat or like
I have.
it's like to me indistinguishable, especially when you
It really is. Yeah.
yeah, okay. So like I haven't eaten meat in a long time, so it's hard for me to actually know. But like from what I've heard from other people, it's pretty indistinguishable. And
It
now
is.
when you mix that and you like mix it with onions and some seasonings and you put it into a patty, you have a pretty fucking good burger patty, that's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's how my father always
That's good.
made his burger patties. Is you get your ground beef and then you add things to it, you mix it up. It's like
Yeah. Uh huh.
so what I'm
Um,
saying is my burger is better. My burger has socialism in it.
your burger has socialism in it. I'm curious. I want to move on to the next section, but
Yeah,
I'm curious
probably a
about
good
like
idea. Yeah.
what particular eating habits would be after the
Mm.
revolution, because I know a lot of vegetarianism and
Oh.
specifically veganism is about the mistreatment of animals, and if there were like a less
Mm.
cruel society to animals, would people still want to be vegetarians and vegans? I'm not saying that they can't be. I think that that's
Right.
totally valid and valuable.
Well,
Um,
I can
but
tell
I'm
you the answer is
curious.
yes because I'm a vegetarian and the reason is stubbornness and pretty much no other reason. So I
I
promise you
respect
that
it,
there will be stubborn people after the revolution.
as there should be. Stubbornness for all. Brandon, stubbornness for all. uh, Stubbornness is a sort of luxury. All right,
Mm.
I'm gonna keep going. Is it a dream to conceive a society in which, all having become producers, all having received an education that enables them to cultivate science or art, and all having leisure to do so, men would combine to publish the works of their choice by contributing each his share of manual work? We have already hundreds of learned, literary, and other societies, and these societies are nothing but voluntary groups of men interested in certain branches of learning and associated for the purpose of publishing their works. The authors who write for the periodicals of these societies are not paid, and the periodicals are not for sale. They are sent gratis to all quarters of the globe, to other societies cultivating the same branches of learning. This member of the society may insert in its review a one-page note summarizing his observations. Another may publish therein an extensive work, the results of long years of study, while others will confine themselves to consulting the review as a starting point for further research. It does not matter. All these authors and readers are associated for the production of works in which all of them take an interest. It is true that a learned society, like the individual author, goes to a printing office where workmen are engaged to do the printing. Nowadays, those who belong to the learned societies despise manual labor, which indeed is carried on under very bad conditions. But a community which would give a generous philosophic and scientific education to all its members would know how to organize manual labor in such a way that it would be the pride of humanity. Its learned societies would become associations of explorers, lovers of science, and workers, all knowing a manual trade and all interested in science. If, for example, the society is studying geology, all will contribute to the exploration of the Earth's strata. Each member will take his share in research, and 10,000 observers, where we have now only 100, will do more in a year than we can do in 20 years. And when their works are to be published, 10,000 men and women, skilled in different trades, will be ready to draw maps, engrave designs, compose and print the books. With gladness will they give their leisure, in summer to exploration, in winter to indoor work, and when their works appear, they will find not only 100, but 10,000 readers interested in their common work. This is the direction in which progress is already moving. Even today, when England felt the need of a complete dictionary of the English language, the birth of a literature who would devote his life to this work was not waited for. Volunteers were appealed to, and 1,000 men offered their services, spontaneously and gratuitously, to ransack the libraries, to take notes, and to accomplish in a few years a work which one man could not complete in his lifetime. In all branches of human intelligence, the same spirit is breaking forth, and we should have a very limited knowledge of humanity could we not guess that the future is announcing itself in such tentative cooperation, which is gradually taking the place of individual work. For this dictionary to be a really collective work, it would have required that many volunteer authors, printers, and printers' readers should have worked in common. But something in this direction is done already in the socialist press, which offers us examples of manual and intellectual work combined. It happens in our newspapers that a socialist author composes in lead his own article. True, such attempts are rare, but they indicate in which direction evolution is going. They show the road of liberty. In future, when a man will have something useful to say, a word that goes beyond the thoughts of his century, he will not have to look for an editor who might advance the necessary capital. He will look for collaborators among those who know the printing trade, and who approve the idea of his new work. Together, they will publish the new book or journal. Literature and journalism will cease to be a means of money making and living at the cost of others. But is there anyone who knows literature and journalism from within, and who does not ardently desire that literature should at last be able to free itself from those who formerly protected it, and who now exploit it, and from the multitude with which rare exceptions pays it in proportion to its mediocrity, or to the ease with which it adapts itself to the bad taste of the greater number? Letters and science will only take their proper place in the work of human development when, freed from all mercenary bondage, they will be exclusively cultivated by those that love them and for those that love them. Um, I have one thing to say in response to. I have several things to say, but my first thing to say
Oh,
is just one word:
okay.
Wikipedia.
Yeah, you're right.
The
You're right,
man
and you
is
should say it.
describing the man is describing Wikipedia. Or rather, he's
Kropotkin's
not describing
foretold
Wikipedia.
Wikipedia.
Right. He's describing a potential socialist Wikipedia, which really, I know it's not it doesn't have academic rigor, blah 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 blah. We should all strive for a socialist Wikipedia. Truly.
I mean,
Um
Wikipedia is socialist, right? It only asks for money, like just to exist, basically, right? I
yeah, it
know it's
basically does.
not, but like
I just mean if people had more time. I don't know if it employs people, first of all.
that's true.
Um
I don't. I mean, it has to. Like, people have to
it
be
has to.
like developing, or maybe it's just like three people.
Um
I don't know.
I don't know. I know it has a lot of like volunteers and like substantial contributors.
Hmm.
Um what I also know is like the potential for a better Wikipedia would be really easy if we had less if we had more time with which to edit Wikipedia and add new articles and
Hmm.
stuff.
Hmm.
And make and confront biases and like explore deeper into things. Um, that's the first thing I would say is like those sorts of endeavors. We've seen them work already, even in capitalist society. I think it's very reasonable to assume that it would work even
Right.
better in a kind of post-capitalist, communist, or socialist, whatever his vision, the anarcho-communist vision of society.
Also, Wikipedia is pretty trustworthy as long as you like check your links. Like, people link things at the bottom, and like
It also
usually,
depends on the topic.
yeah, that's
Um,
fair.
Political topics can get really messy really quickly.
Yep.
Is a thing that's true, and that's where most of the misinformation comes through. Is to my understanding is things that are contentious politically,
Mm-hmm.
but other things, kind of just general knowledge topics,
Like
much
what a
easier.
good burger is.
What a good burger is. Won't be contentious at all. Second thing I'm gonna say, Um, I it's very, very 18th century of him to be like, oh yes, we'll have great groups of explorers exploring together, making maps, doing exploring.
Uh-huh. My God,
Somehow I
you're
don't
being
think that's
so
gonna be the
18th
most popular
century.
science.
Yeah.
It's so 18th century. Oh my God, you're so totally 18th century. That's so 18th century.
Wow. Oh my God.
It's my favorite reboot of That's So Raven, but
That's so 18th
she's
century.
yeah, that's so 18th century. Oh, sorry, not
Uh,
18th century, 19th century. He's in the 19th century. My
I
apologies to Kapok.
I was fully like a little confused on why the 18th century, but I was ready to accept it. I was like, okay, all right, you're kind
I
of
always get
insulting him.
confused between. I always get confused with the fact that the 1800s is not the 18th century; it's the 19th century. I always get confused with that, and
Right.
that's my era. So, come for me, fucking come for me, fucking attack me.
All right, you heard her here first, folks. Get her ass.
What do you have to say on this section before we take our break?
I don't know if I have much to say. If I'm being honest, I don't know if I'm like retaining a lot. I still have COVID brain. So
Fair enough.
I'm could you give me a quick summary of the you might like prompt some things in my mind.
It's already we already have evidence of
Oh, right.
volunteerism
Yeah, right,
in
right, right. Okay.
regards to academics and academic subjects, and so
Yeah.
there's no reason for us to believe that academia would not in fact just be buoyed by having more people involved with it, and also by having academics also perform some manual labor.
Yeah. I mean, what do I think of this? I can't say I disagree. I do feel like the idea of academia would probably change though. Like so right now, I'm trying to write a statement of intent in order to get into grad school. And one of the things I'm having like a hard time is like um citing sources where the source is just me. Um
Mm-hmm.
and that yeah, I don't know, that sounds like maybe pretentious, but it's like um uh so Brianna, there's I know we have to go to break, but there's like this study, and I don't know how popular it made the rounds. It was in 2020, so I didn't have social media by then. So maybe everybody knows about this, but there was like research done into a correlation between autism and gender diversity, and
Yeah.
why it's like more likely that someone
Yeah.
who is autistic might be gender diverse
Yep.
versus their holistic counterparts. Or there was correlation the other way as well. Anyways, like this research like got pretty like heavily funded, or at least like the most funded it had ever gotten in 2020. But I remember having these conversations in like 2013 with other
Yeah.
trans people who are autistic. And like the whole point that I'm
Yes.
trying to argue in the my statement of intent is like the things that we understand as academic research today are fundamentally, like at least in sociology, are fundamentally grounded in conversations within communities. And so when we think of like what is academia, especially what is academia about people, conversations, like
Yeah.
thinking, like group thought, uh like your thesis again, what is an author in the face of an idea?
Right. Right.
Anyways, so
Yeah.
that's what I'm thinking is like what would academia even look like in like a truly socialist society? And I think the answer is like
It'd be it'd be so much more fun. It'd be so much better. I could stand it if it was
right, yeah.
I could stand it. It's yeah. I would have probably stayed in academia. It's like my most genuine answer.
Yeah.
I guess I am sort of still in academia. I'm in student support.
Yeah.
It's different.
Well, I'll be
It's
joining you
complicated.
soon. Hopefully, fingers crossed. Maybe
In
fingers
student support?
uncrossed?
All
Question
right,
mark.
fair
Yeah,
enough.
I'll be there. So, surprise! I got
Good luck.
hired. You're my boss now.
Okay, great. I'm
So
actually, it
just.
turns out, secretly an evil boss. I've been an
Oh
evil boss this whole time.
no! Crap!
Uh, this is
Crap!
all long con. I'm actually terrible to my employees, of which I have just dozens of them. Dozens of employees.
Uh huh.
Uh-huh.
There are
Okay,
ones
let's
of
go to
us.
break and come
Ones.
back.
Okay. All right. Oh.
Ones of us. Yeah. All right, we're going to break. We'll be back.
All right. We're back. And we're doing Brad again.
Pie check. How we doing on money? Pie making queen.
We are at 6 million. I've been fucking up a lot. So we've only, well, what, I guess that's 700,000. So, you know what? Never mind. We're kind of exactly on track. Even though I feel like I'm fucking up a lot. So this is a lesson to everyone. Even if you think that you aren't doing great, that's just your brain telling you that because you have high expectations of yourself. You're doing fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. Fuck yes. 100%. Let's Yeah, I think we're really very much on track to get to 7 mil. And I'm excited for us to get there. Okay,
Yeah.
shall we?
Hell yeah. Hell yeah.
All right, section 4 of the Need for Luxury.
We're still in luxuries. All right.
Literature, science, and art must be cultivated by free men. Only on this condition will they succeed in emancipating themselves from the yoke of the state, of capital, and of the bourgeois mediocrity which stifles them. What means has the scientist of today to make researches that interest him? Should he ask help of the state, which can only be given to one candidate in 100, and which none may obtain who does not ostensibly promise to keep to the beaten track? Let us remember how the Institute of France censured Darwin, how the Academy of St. Petersburg treated Mendeleev with contempt, and how the Royal Society of London refused to publish Joule's paper, in which he determined the mechanical equivalent of heat, finding it quote-unquote unscientific. The note here is, we know this from Playfair, who mentioned it at Joule's death. It is why all great researches, all discoveries revolutionizing science, have been made outside academies and universities, either by men rich enough to remain independent, like Darwin and Lyell, or by men who undermined their health by working in poverty and often in great straits, losing no end of time for want of a laboratory, and unable to procure the instruments or books necessary to continue their researches, but persevering against hope and often dying before they had reached the end in view. Their name is Legion. Although, altogether, the system of help granted by the state is so bad that science has always endeavored to emancipate itself from it. For this very reason, there are thousands of learned societies organized and maintained by volunteers in Europe and America, some having developed to such a degree that all the resources of subventioned societies and the wealth of millionaires would not buy their treasures. No governmental institution is as rich as the Zoological Society of London, which is supported by voluntary contributions. It does not buy the animals which in thousands people its gardens. They are sent by other societies and by collectors of the entire world. The Zoological Society of Bombay will send an elephant as a gift. Another time, a hippopotamus or a rhinoceros is offered by Egyptian naturalists. And these magnificent presents are pouring in every day, arriving from all quarters of the globe. Birds, reptiles, collections of insects, etc. These consignments often comprise animals that could not be bought for all the gold in the world. Thus, a traveler who has captured an animal at life's peril and now loves it as he would love a child will give it to the society because he is sure it will be cared for. The entrance fee paid by visitors, and they are numberless, suffices for the maintenance of that immense institution. What is defective in the Zoological Society of London and in other kindred societies is that the members' fee cannot be paid in work. That the keepers and numerous employees of this large institution are not recognized as members of the society, while many have no other incentive to joining the society than to put the cabalistic letters FZS, Fellow of the Zoological Society, on their cards. In a word, what is needed is a more perfect cooperation. We may say the same about inventors that we have said of scientists. Who does not know what sufferings nearly all great inventions that have come to light have caused? Sleepless nights, families deprived of bread, want of tools and materials for experiments. It's the history of nearly all those who've enriched industry with inventions which are the truly legitimate pride of our civilization. But what are we to do to alter conditions that everybody is convinced are bad? Patents have been tried, and we know with what results. The inventor sells his patent for a few shillings, and the man who has only lent the capital pockets the often enormous profits resulting from the invention. Besides, patents isolate the inventor. They compel him to keep secret his researches, which therefore end in failures, whereas the simplest suggestion, coming from a brain less absorbed in the fundamental idea, sometimes suffices to fertilize the invention and make it practical. Like all state control, patents hamper the progress of industry. Thought being incapable of being patented, patents are a crying injustice in theory, and in practice they result in one of the greatest obstacles to the rapid development of invention. What is needed to promote the spirit of invention is, first of all, the awakening of thought, the boldness of conception, which our entire education causes to languish. It is the spreading of a scientific education, which would increase the number of inquirers 100-fold. It is faith that humanity is going to take a step forward, because it is enthusiasm, the hope of doing good, that has inspired all the great inventors. The social revolution alone can give this impulse to thought, this boldness, this knowledge, this conviction of working for all. Then we shall have vast institutes supplied with motor power and tools of all sorts, immense industrial laboratories open to all inquirers, where men will be able to work out their dreams, after having acquitted themselves of their duty towards society, where they will spend their 5 or 6 hours of leisure, where they will make their experiments, where they will find other comrades, experts in other branches of industry, likewise coming to study some difficult problem, and therefore able to help and enlighten each other. The encounter of their ideas and experience causing the longed for solution to be found. And yet again, this is no dream. Solenoid Gorodok in Petersburg has already partially realized it as regards technical matters. It is a factory well furnished with tools and free to all. Tools and motor power are supplied gratis. Only metals and wood are charged for at cost price. Unfortunately, workmen only go there at night when worn out by 10 hours labor in the workshop. Moreover, they carefully hide their inventions from each other, as they are hampered by patents and capitalism, that bane of present society, that stumbling block in the path of intellectual and moral progress.
This dude's gonna hate what Disney's about to do.
And tech companies. This man's gonna hate tech companies. He's gonna lose his
Yeah.
fucking mind. This man's gonna hear about Tesla, and he's gonna rise from the grave and strangle Elon Musk himself.
Uh,
Also, hi Nat, welcome. We're in the
Hello.
need for luxury section. We're having a great time talking about luxury. Do you wanna talk about you've talked, I think, previously about how open source, how like the
Mm,
lack of open source like
yeah.
technology and such like infuriates you in terms
Oh,
of the
it
development of
absolutely
tech.
does. Yeah,
Yeah.
100%. I mean, the thing is, Kropotkin's, without even knowing it, has truly hit on like the thing that like makes the tech industry such a waste of time and money. And like the amount of money that is needed to even like design the technology that we have today. People reinvent the same shit literally daily. Like, because our technology is private, because you cannot just like download Google's voice translator or whatever. Like we specifically use Google Meet for the captions because they are the best auto captioning available. Or at least for free that we know of. I should add those caveats. But
Yes.
what if everyone could just use it? What if everyone could just improve on one voice detection software? You'd get a lot of edge cases covered really quick. The only reason Google has the best one that is free is because Google isn't making money that way. That's not how Google makes its
Right.
money. And it has
Right.
so much fucking money that like
Mhm.
it can reinvent the same thing over and over again and not take a hit.
Yeah.
And it can put so many people, like I've said this 100 times probably. Google's accessibility team is the best and most well-funded accessibility team in any industry. And it's also getting shit amount of money compared to any other department at Google because Google just has so much money. Like this is like
Yeah.
saying this is like me having $10 billion and you saying thank you for this $2 million you've given me and me being like
Yes.
yeah no worries like it's truly nothing like it is truly like this is
And
why
meanwhile,
yeah
someone else gets 100,000.
right
From their
yes
company.
and they're trying to compete with and the thing is they're trying to compete they're not building on they're trying to compete with this thing because that is how markets work is you have market competition and so instead of having a better system you just have multiple systems that are either mediocre or the richest one wins and thus Google wins
And
and
to
yeah
be clear, my understanding is that recently. Sorry,
no go on
you were a little.
I was
I was
done
gonna
I was
say
done
recently. My understanding is that Zoom is starting to catch up, or
Oh,
in some
really?
places even surpass Google Meet's captions in
You know why
terms
that
of
is?
ability to voice recognize. I do. They didn't used to have captions at all, or like, and didn't used to have
Yeah.
like decent. And now it's becoming one of the best. Um, but this is classic shit. Like Google is still, to my knowledge, Google Meet is still the only one that recognizes who the speaker is. Zoom
Yeah.
does not. Zoom
Yeah.
just says someone saying these words, right?
Yeah. Well, that's not
Whereas,
true actually. Zoom if you save the video will predict actually no, that's not true. It just actually shows you who is currently talking and then it allocates those words to that
yes,
person. You're correct
if
actually. I
multiple
take
people
what
are
yeah.
talking at the same time, it can't
Yeah.
tell who is talking, and it will kind of
Yeah.
intersperse them, but it gets really complicated. So the thing is, they're getting really good at the voice recognition part, in some cases better than Google Meet,
Right.
but they're still behind on other aspects because they're not working together. They're working
Exactly.
separately, right? They're
Yes.
competing.
Exactly. And like
Whereas,
this is what infuriates me is we're inventing the wheel over and over and over again. And this is like why one of my favorite jokes is like tech developer reinvents the lunch hour. Um cuz it's like we I was going to say we do. I'm a tech developer. I'm guilty of this stuff. Like and I'm so surrounded by it that like I get sucked in and I think um or even just the other day, like someone I know was saying was like sort of stream of consciousness sending me texts as they had an idea. And the idea was like basically headphones that like um if someone is speaking slowly will sort of take that, use artificial intelligence and sort of piece it all together once they're done speaking because it can be hard for some at least in their case their neurodivergence to like parse what was said if there's a large gap between the start and the end of the sentence. And my response was, why are you throwing AI at something where you could just go, why can you say that again? Um, and the answer is truly because the culture doesn't like that. If you ask someone to repeat themselves, it's seen as rude. And I was trying to
Mm-hmm.
explain, like, at least in our, and this is my read, in our friend group, if you ask someone to repeat yourself, it's a sign that you're listening and interested. Like, and you're trying to understand what someone has just said. And so it's like a good thing. Where it's like, oh, sorry, like, can you say that again? Like, I didn't really understand it in how you said it. And their response was, that seems alien and like utopian. And I was like, really? Okay. This is the level of like difference. Like this is what I was also God, I'm going out. You've got me ranting about the tech industry now. Thank you, Brianna. Um the thing that
This is the time, you know?
it really is. So I was like also thinking about community because like I got sick recently. I got COVID and like I was telling them like 5 people offered to bring me groceries. Um which is a very like a privileged thing to do, but it is also community. Like it is also like no, like having wonderful people, I should say, in my life who genuinely care about my well-being and will offer to like help me when I need help because I'm not saying because, but like and also I love helping people when they need help and like this is just community cares for community. And what having money and what technology does is you don't need community. You can pay for your groceries to get delivered. You can pay someone to do things for you. Tech and like individualism with money is the antithesis to community
Right.
and
And
rant.
yeah, and Kropotkin here is saying, like, oh, actually, you know, if we were to all work together on inventing, on creating new things, um, we would go so much faster and be so much better at this.
Right.
Which is just true. It's just true. And when he talks
Yeah.
about patents, you know, obviously I think about copyright. I've already had that rant, so I won't do it again in this
I would listen to you
in
rant about
this
copyright
thing.
as
But
many times as you would listen to me rant about the
I
tech
appreciate
industry.
it. But you know, if we're taking this all as a whole, like it's you know, it's I've done it already, and like this is all the same, you know. But
Yep.
no, I'm with you. Shall we push forward?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, just one sec.
Is this the last? Oh fuck, I was not paying attention. Is this the last luxury chapter?
This um is this the last what? Sorry.
Luxury chapter, subsection of the luxury chapter. I mean,
Oh, I
fuck.
think this may be the last chapter of
Oh
the. Yes,
wow,
this is the
nice.
last. This is the
Getting
last
really
section.
close. Sorry,
Of,
that is what I meant.
yes. Okay. Yes. All right. Let's get into it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And what about art? From all sides, we hear lamentations about the decadence of art. We are indeed far behind the great masters of the Renaissance. The technicalities of art have recently made great progress. Thousands of people gifted with a certain amount of talent cultivate every branch, but art seems to fly from civilization. Technicalities make headway, but inspiration frequents artist studios less than ever. Where indeed should it come from? Only a grand idea can inspire art. Art is in our ideals synonymous with creation. It must look ahead. But save a few rare, very rare exceptions, the professional artist remains too philistine to perceive new horizons. Moreover, this inspiration cannot come from books. It must be drawn from life, and present society cannot arouse it. Raphael and Murillo painted at a time when the search of a new ideal could adapt itself to old religious traditions. They painted to decorate great churches which represented the pious work of several generations. The basilic, with its mysterious aspect, its grandeur, was connected with the life itself of the city and could inspire a painter. He worked for a popular monument. He spoke to his fellow citizens, and in return he received inspiration. He appealed to the multitude in the same way as did the nave, the pillars, the stained window, the statues, and the carved doors. Nowadays, the greatest honor a painter can aspire to is to see his canvas, framed in gilded wood, hung in a museum, a sort of old curiosity shop, where you see, as in the Prado, Murillo's Ascension next to a beggar of Velasquez and the dogs of Philip II. Poor Velasquez and poor Moreo. Poor Greek statues which lived in the acropolis of their cities and are now stifled behind the red cloth hangings of the Louvre. When a Greek sculptor chiseled his marvel, he endeavored to express the spirit and heart of the city. All its passions, all its traditions of glory were to live again in the work. But today the united city has ceased to exist. There is no more communion of ideas. The town is a chance agglomeration of people who do not know one another, who have no common interest, save the enriching of themselves at the expense of one another. The fatherland does not exist. What fatherland can the international banker and the rag picker have in common? Only when cities, territories, nations, or groups of nations will have renewed their harmonious life will art be able to draw its inspiration from ideals held in common. Then will the architect conceive the city's monument, which will no longer be a temple, a prison, or a fortress. Then will the painter, the sculptor, the carver, the ornament worker know where to put their canvases, their statues, and their decorations, deriving their power of execution from the same vital source and gloriously marching all together towards the future. But till then, art can only vegetate. The best canvases of modern artists are those that represent nature, villages, valleys, the sea with its dangers, the mountain with its splendors. But how can the painter express the poetry of work in the fields if he has only contemplated it, imagined it, if he has never delighted in it himself? If he only knows it as a bird of passage knows the country he soars over on his migrations? If, in the vigor of early youth, he has not followed the plow at dawn and enjoyed mowing grass with a large swath of the scythe next to hardly haymakers vying in energy with lively young girls who fill the air with their songs. The love of the soil and of what grows on it is not acquired by sketching with a paintbrush. It is only in its service, and without loving it, how paint it? This is why all that the best painters have produced in this direction is still so imperfect, not true to life, nearly always merely sentimental. There is no strength in it. You must have seen a sunset when returning from work. You must have been a peasant among peasants to keep the splendor of it in your eye. You must have been at sea with fishermen at all hours of the day and night, have fished yourself, struggled with the waves, faced the storm, and after rough work experienced the joy of hauling a heavy net, or the disappointment of seeing it empty, to understand the poetry of fishing. You must have spent time in a factory, known the fatigues and the joys of creative work, forged metals by the vivid light of a blast furnace, have felt the life in a machine, to understand the power of man and to express it in a work of art. You must, in fact, be permeated with popular feelings to describe them. Besides, the works of future artists who will have lived the life of the people, like the great artists of the past, will not be destined for sale. They will be an integrant part of a living whole that would not be complete without them, any more than they would be complete without it. Men will go to the artist's own city to gaze at his work, and the spirited and serene beauty of such creations will produce its beneficial effect on heart and mind. Art, in order to develop, must be bound up with industry by 1,000 intermediate degrees, blended, so to say, as Ruskin and the great socialist poet Morris have proved so often and so well. Everything that surrounds man, in the street, in the interior and exterior of public monuments, must be of a pure artistic form. But this will only be capable of realization in a society in which all enjoy comfort and leisure. Then we shall see art associations, in which each can find room for his capacity, for art cannot dispense with an infinity of purely manual and technical supplementary works. These artistic associations will undertake to embellish the houses of their members, as those kind volunteers, the young painters of Edinburgh, did in decorating the walls and ceilings of the great hospital for the poor in their city. A painter or sculptor who has produced a work of personal feeling will offer it to the woman he loves or to a friend. Executed for love's sake, will his work, inspired by love, be inferior to the art that today satisfies the vanity of the Philistine because it has cost much money? The same will be done as regards all pleasure not comprised in the necessaries of life. He who wishes for a grand piano will enter the association of Musical Instrument Makers, and by giving the association part of his half-day's leisure, he will soon possess the piano of his dreams. If he is passionately fond of astronomical studies, he will join the Association of Astronomers, with its philosophers, its observers, its calculators, with its artists and astronomical instruments, its scientists and amateurs, and he will have the telescope he desires by taking his share of the associated work, for it is especially the rough work that is needed in an astronomical observatory bricklayers, carpenters, founders, mechanics work, the last touch being given to the instrument by precision by the artist. In short, the 5 or 7 hours a day, which each will have at his disposal, after having consecrated several hours to the production of necessities, will amply supply to satisfy all longings for luxury, however varied. Thousands of associations would undertake to supply them. What is now the privilege of an insignificant minority would be accessible to all. Luxury, ceasing to be a foolish and ostentatious display of the bourgeois class, would become an artistic pleasure. Everyone would be happier for it. In collective work performed with a light heart to attain a desired end, a book, a work of art, or an object of luxury, each will find an incentive and the necessary relaxation that makes life pleasant. In working to put an end to the division between master and slave, we work for the happiness of both, for the happiness of humanity.
Nice.
For real. I'm gonna get into a bit of a rant.
Oh god.
But first, hi Fenrir, welcome.
Hi, Fen.
Kropotkin is going well. We are just finishing up the need for luxury. This section was all about art and the alienation of art with art. Previous sections were about other subjects. I remembered a thing I wanted to say about a previous section, which was about technology and talking about like getting money from the government for a thing. Pie making is also going well. Our number is currently
6.4.
6.4 million, basically, of 7, so that we're doing well. But in regards to that previous section, I just want to say, what it makes me think of is how hard it is to get funding for scientific research that does not benefit the U.S. military.
Right. Right.
Like,
yeah, truly.
The thing that I believe he discusses specifically, he must promise to keep to the beaten track in terms of his research. Now he must promise to keep to the military track. That is like the purpose of research in contemporary capitalist society, especially in the West, particularly in the West. Yeah. There isn't research for research's sake. There isn't research for interest's sake. It is for military reasons.
Well, there is. It's just incredibly underfunded.
It's just incredibly underfunded. You're right. And which, by the way, now art. Let's talk about art. Okay. The thing is.
Okay. I have one very quick comment before you go into your rant, because I want to give you your full rant, which is just I fully think that we'd have more time than Kropotkin's is estimating for like leisure. He says 4 or 5 hours a day. I think it'd be 8. Anyways, that's it. That's my whole thing.
We would have so much more time. Kropotkin is like truly. It's so funny that people call Kropotkin unrealistic in his time when we're like, buddy, we can do so much better. We can do so much better. But the thing that I wanted to say about this is often, I think a very common discussion in communist circles and in socialist circles is alienation from one's labor. Alienation from the production of what Kropotkin calls necessaries. But I think what we're increasingly seeing, and I think you can totally link this to Disney, to Marvel, to all this, is alienation from one's participation in art. Fenrir in the chat asking, is he like...
Sorry, go on.
Oh, Fenrir in the chat asking, is he like not including child rearing and meal preparation and eating in leisure though? Yeah. I think he is including those in leisure, and also he's thinking, I think, probably of women doing that.
Yeah, probably.
I wonder if he's thinking of that as like women's 4 or 5 hours a day, you know? Um, I'd be curious to know what
Probably. I mean,
specifically.
he's dead now. We can't ask him, but
Yeah, I'll just call him up.
just call him
Give
up.
him a call.
You're gonna use
Um,
your wish of like, who would you have at the dinner party to bring back Kropotkin so you can drag him.
yeah, absolutely. What a fun dinner party that would be. Um, but alienation from one's art and a disconnect with the subjects one is making art about are so are fascinatingly connected both to Kropotkin's time and our time, right? I think a lot about the kind of um, obviously I focused on the Romantic era a lot in my studies of university, and like fun fact, there's a real big difference between the Romantics who um, were most Romantics who basically did not actually do the work of nature, but did write about people who did it a lot. Particularly, that's your Wordsworths, especially, but also those who were associated with William Wordsworth, like Samuel Taylor Coleridge, and Dorothy Wordsworth as well. Um, those people would often write poetry about laborers that they met, like on the road. There's a particularly famous poem that he writes about, I believe it's him who writes it, about like a leech seller, basically. Um, this was a thing at the time because leeches were a part of medical
Right. This makes
science.
sense. This makes sense to me now.
Um, yeah, and so like, and the thing is, they're kind of all garbage. And this is my personal opinion. Lots of people like Wordsworth poetry. I think it's all kind of trash. Um, because it's not invested in like he never worked a fucking day in his life. Um, he writes about other people's labor. This is I find a lot of like, and there's lots of reasons for this, but I find a lot of the poetry of someone like Robbie Burns much more compelling, who's also of his same era, but happened to, like, to my understanding, grow up on a farm in Scotland, like actually doing farm labor. And so when he writes like To a Mouse, um, obviously his most famous work, it's a lot, it feels more meaningful because he's out there, he's seen the fucking mouse in the soil and he can talk to the mouse, whereas Wordsworth can say, I met this guy on the road, he sold leeches, seemed like a sad life, really makes you think about society. uh,
Wow.
um
Just you describing
that's the
that makes
first
me
thing.
not want to read it.
I don't think Wordsworth is particularly good. Some people, I'm sure, would have other opinions of that, but my opinion is objectively correct. So, um, but and then in the modern day, if I'm not talking about people from the early 1800s, which again I suppose is already, to my understanding, is already archaic for Kropotkin, um, but even contemporarily, when he talks about how we don't have art about ideals, I don't know that that's necessarily the same anymore. I think a lot of art is about ideals. Um, but what I think now is like we don't have like art with meaning in a lot of ways. We do definitely still have some. Um, but the art that to me is the most affecting is the art that is more focused on particular communities. It's made by and for particular communities.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Um, I just finished. Um, sorry, what was that?
I know what you mean. I agree, is what I'm saying.
Yeah. Sorry, one sec. I recently read Fierce Femmes and Notorious Liars by Kai Cheng Tom, which is a fantastic novel. It's really good.
What's it about?
Um, it's about, it's like a sort of, it's like I think the only way to describe it would be a pseudo autobiography. This is a
Okay.
kind of a style that is very popular and was like to my understanding, kind of a house style of Audre Lorde and her work,
Oh.
in which, like, you are telling the events of your life, but to a heightened degree, that
Hmm.
allows for more interesting things. I won't get into the specifics of like Fierce Femmes and Notorious Liars, but like my understanding, and it's a limited understanding because I'm still kind of investigating more of the work. I really like the work, and I think it's a really interesting genre, but I'm still investigating it more. Um, but my understanding is that something like, you know, a big um a big like fallout that you would have had with a with a friend, you know, could instead be written as like a fist fight, you know, whereas
Oh.
another might be much more realistic. um
Okay. Huh.
it's like it's a biography, but it's not necessarily all true, you know what I mean?
Okay.
um
Neat. Interesting.
it's very cool. I don't know that I'm selling it particularly well, and that's because I don't want to give spoilers for the book, because I think people should go and read it. um
I think
but
spoilers are
what
good.
I'll
I'll
say
say it.
is,
I think spoilers make media better.
okay, I'm gonna give a little bit of a spoiler. I'm gonna give a couple
Okay.
seconds.
You really don't want a
Um,
spoiler.
yeah. So mute me now. I'll be done in about 10 seconds. Like, what I mean is, I'm pretty sure Kai Ching Tom did not commit murder in real life, but in the book that does happen, right?
That sounds sick. Hell yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
Um,
that does make me want to read the book, and that does make for a more interesting read because now I would be like waiting for that to happen and like the anticipation would build. Anyways, it sounds really good. I want to
you'll
read this
know,
book.
you'll know when it's about to happen.
Okay.
Um, But I guess my point is like that is a book that is very interested in talking about and to a particular community, a particular audience, a particular person. Um, and I think a lot of the, you know, when he's talking about how art doesn't have like call to ideals because it's not about like specific real lived communities and places and stuff like that. I think that's true because, uh, you know, I think mainstream art still has that general problem. Um, like you can argue, and I think it would be a legitimate argument that Marvel movies do have themes, um, but I
Yeah.
don't think they have ideals. You know, I don't think they
Mhm.
have, except in maybe the broadest of categories. They don't have. They aren't about anything. They don't mean shit. They do not
Right.
mean anything, because they're trying to appeal to the most broad possible audience. Because people who are, because there's no vision necessarily. It is like, I don't mean the character vision, to be clear. There's no vision as a piece of work. There is vision as a character in some of those movies. Um, but there's no vision in terms of like it is being micromanaged. It is going through person and person and person. It's going to CGI artists who are alienated from their labor, who are being treated like shit. Which
Right.
is why we see the kind of bad levels of CGI that we're seeing now, because those people are underfunded, because they're doing their best with shitty circumstances. Um,
It's
and
weird how
like,
we were just talking about budgets and whatnot.
mm-hmm. But my point generally is like, this is why a piece of art of like a piece of art of a community center hung in that community center that has meant a lot to a lot of people in a less funded area is, to me, more emotionally affecting, than the most, you know, well
Right.
performing movie of all time, right?
Right. Which is
um
Avatar, to
Even
be
if
clear.
right, no, I think it's Endgame now. I think
Is it? Wait,
Endgame beat it.
what? Really?
I
I
think
thought
Endgame
Avatar
beat it.
still
Yeah,
held the title, huh?
I'd
Okay.
have to check, but even if the technical proficiency in Avatar, for example, let's say it's Avatar, is
Right.
phenomenal, and it
Right.
is. Let's be
Yeah.
clear,
Uh-huh. This is actually
visual
literally
effects
my
in
point.
that
Yeah.
film phenomenal.
Yes. Uh-huh.
But like,
Name
And
3
Avatar
characters from
has
Avatar.
themes. Right. But name 3 fucking characters from Avatar. And, like, think of a piece of art that you've seen recently that, like, fucking actually hit for you. You know? Like, which of these do you remember better? I remember the fucking, like, we went to the traditional Chinese gardens not too long ago, and like they had an exhibit on kind of Chinese history and stuff like that with some with like Chinese Canadian history specifically, and they had some art pieces there. I remember those art pieces much better than I do what happened in fucking in Avatar, the first Avatar movie. Like I fundamentally, and you know, time is also a factor there, but also like that's true of a lot of superhero movies and a lot of movies that like don't mean anything. Um. Okay. Fenrir, don't worry. Fenrir's got us here. Name 3 characters from Avatar. Me. Wheelchair main character Sigourney Weaver. Nala, but a blue alien. Nailed it. Nailed it. Never mind. Fenrir has just
You're
proven
right. You've got us.
Avatar actually is more culturally relevant than.
Well, unfortunately it is,
What I'm
because I'm pretty
saying-
sure the second trailer just dropped, the one for the new movie.
I know it is, but like, who's talking about that movie?
Well, my work is talking about that movie because we own the VFX studio.
Okay, good point. Who other than the owners of the businesses are talking about that movie? I've not heard shit about that movie. I don't even know if that movie's out. I don't know if a trailer came out. And it's not like I'm disconnected from culture. I know when a fucking Marvel movie comes out. I know when a Star Wars thing comes out. I know when big shit hits. I don't know when or what is happening with the second Avatar movie for a reason.
I think
no
the trailer
one, yeah, as Fenrir says, no one I know is
yesterday.
talking about it. No one I've seen on social media.
Yeah.
What?
Okay. I think the trailer came out yesterday. It looks very pretty, is what I'll say. It still looks very pretty. It looks like like I don't know, the plot looks like it's gonna be pretty much the mediocre thing that you expect. But let me tell you, those water VFX, those look really good. I will say that.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Which is like exactly what we would expect.
Yeah, it's literally what we're saying.
This is what Kropotkin is saying.
Right,
and it's the same fucking thing.
Kropotkin said Avatar, the sequel, had very good water graphics.
Kropotkin says, technicalities make headway, but inspiration frequents artist studios less than ever.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
It's the same.
Sage nodding.
Yeah. And as Fenrir says, those VFX artists aren't unionizing, get shit paid for terrible hours. Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
I tell you, I know some of those VFX artists.
Yeah. Yeah. No. And so all of this is to say, after the revolution, not only will we not be alienated from our labor, we will also not be alienated from our art, and that's gonna rock. That's gonna be fucking great. It's gonna make art so much better.
Art will be better, yeah.
Also, like, you can make whatever you want with fucking Marvel characters, and no one's gonna come for your fucking head.
Oh, yeah.
This is my promise to you. Vote for me for new socialist leader.
For new socialist super president.
Which is definitely the way we want to arrange society, and definitely is not in conflict with anarcho-communist ideals.
Wait, you're telling me anarcho-communism isn't about electing the one perfect leader?
No, it's about electing 3.
Oh, okay,
we're doing the triumvirate again. That's my new vision for. We're doing the Roman triumvirate again.
Oh.
That did not end badly. What the fuck who's Caesar? I've never heard of him. There would never be someone who would try to take power from a triumvirate. That's ridiculous. You don't know what you're talking about. If we just have 3 people in charge, it'll all be fine.
Yeah. I mean, Rome still exists.
You know, Sure does. Thank you, Fenrir. Fenrir in the chat. We're electing 3 leaders. They're all lesbians and in a polycule, and that is what we believe in, and that's what Kropotkin believed in, and that's what he was saying the whole time.
Really, I think all governments should just be governed by a polycule. If you're kicked out of the polycule, you're no longer in power.
This sounds like a good system of government, and it seems like it would never cause problems. I think what we're describing, by the way, is a BioWare. It's a BioWare system of government. I think we've gotten back to. No, I'm just saying this is like the sort of thing that you would get from fucking Mass Effect, if they were cool enough to allow polyamory.
Right. I thought you were telling me that BioWare was run by a bunch of polyamorous in a polycule.
No, I don't think that one is, but if you told me there was an indie game studio that was, I would believe you. I would believe you.
I know
Every
of
day
indie game studios that are just a polycule.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. They're very, very indie. So
extremely.
It's truly very much the tip of what we mean when we say indie, where it's like 3 people who are dating and they make games for fun.
Fuck yeah. All right, should we? Let me ask a question. How long is this?
Yeah.
This is two parts. Okay. Should we start part 1 of chapter 10, agreeable work, and then go on break, or should we do break now?
Let's
Why don't we start it and then go break?
Okay. All right. Let's start it.
All right. Let's get into it. Chapter 10. Agreeable work. Section 1. When socialists declare that a society emancipated from capital would make work agreeable and would suppress all repugnant and unhealthy drudgery, they get laughed at. And yet even today we can see the striking progress made in this direction. And wherever this progress has been achieved, employers congratulate themselves on the economy of energy obtained thereby. It is evident that a factory could be made as healthy and pleasant as a scientific laboratory, and it is no less evident that it would be advantageous to make it so. In a spacious and well-ventilated factory, work is better. It is easy to introduce small ameliorations, of which each represents an economy of time or of manual labor. And if most of the workshops we know are foul and unhealthy, it is because the workers are of no account in the organization of factories, and because the most absurd waste of human energy is its distinct feature. Nevertheless, now and again, we already find some factories so well managed that it would be a real pleasure to work in them, if the work, be it well understood, were not to last more than 4 or 5 hours a day, and if everyone had the possibility of varying it according to his tastes. Look at this factory, unfortunately consecrated to engines of war. It is perfect as far as regards sanitary and intelligent organization. It occupies 50 English acres of land, 15 of which are roofed with glass. The pavement of fireproof bricks is as clean as that of a miner's cottage, and the glass roof is carefully cleaned by a gang of workmen who do nothing else. In this factory are forged steel ingots or blooms weighing as much as 20 tons, and when you stand 30 feet from the immense furnace, whose flames have a temperature of more than 1,000 degrees, you do not guess its presence save when its great jaws open up to let out a steel monster. And the monster is handled by only 3 or 4 workmen, who now here, now there, open a tap, causing immense cranes to move by pressure of water in the pipes. You enter expecting to hear the deafening noise of stampers, and you find that there are no stampers. The immense 100-ton guns and the crankshafts of transatlantic steamers are forged by hydraulic pressure, and instead of forging steel, the worker has but to turn a tap to give it shape, which makes a far more homogeneous metal, without crack or flaw, of the blooms, whatever be their thickness. We expect an infernal grating. And we find machines which cut blocks of steel 30 feet long with no more noise than is needed to cut cheese. And when we expressed our admiration to the engineer who showed us round, he answered, "It is a mere question of economy. This machine that planes steel has been in use for 42 years. It would not have lasted 10 years if its component parts, badly adjusted, lacking a cohesive strength, interfered and creaked at each movement of the plane. And the blast furnaces? It would be a waste to let heat escape instead of utilizing it. Why roast the founders when heat lost by radiation represents tons of coal? The stampers that made the building shake 5 leagues off were also waste. It is better to forge by pressure than by impact, and it costs less. There is less loss. In a factory, light, cleanliness, the space allotted to each bench is but a simple question of economy. Work is better done when you can see and you have elbow room. It is true, he said. We were very cramped before coming here. Land is so expensive in the vicinity of large towns. Landlords are so grasping. It is even so in the mines. We know what mines are like nowadays from Zola's descriptions and from newspaper reports. But the mine of the future will be well ventilated, with a temperature as easily regulated as that of a library. There will be no horses doomed to die below the earth. Underground traction will be carried on by means of an automatic cable put in motion at the pit's mouth. Ventilators will always be working, and there will never be explosions. This is no dream. Such a mine is already to be seen in England. We went down it. Here again, this organization is simply a question of economy. The mine of which we speak, in spite of its immense depth, 466 yards, has an output of 1,000 tons of coal a day, with only 200 miners, 5 tons a day per each worker, whereas the average for the 2,000 pits in England is hardly 3,000 tons a year per man. If necessary, we could multiply examples proving that Fourier's dream regarding material organization was not a utopia. This question has, however, been so frequently discussed in socialist newspapers that public opinion might have been educated. Factory, forge, and mine can be as healthy and magnificent as the finest laboratories in modern universities, and the better the organization, the more will man's labor produce. If it be so, can we doubt that work will become a pleasure and a relaxation in a society of equals, in which quote-unquote hands will not be compelled to sell themselves to toil, and to accept work under any conditions? Repugnant tasks will disappear because it is evident that these unhealthy conditions are harmful to society as a whole. Slaves can submit to them, but free men will create new conditions, and their work will be pleasant and infinitely more productive. The exceptions of today will be the rule of tomorrow. The same will come to pass as regards domestic work, which today's society lays on the shoulders of that drudge of humanity, women.
What? Whoa! Fucking
Drudge,
out of left field
means,
right there.
I think drudge here means sufferer. I think not worst part of humanity. I think most suffering part of humanity is what is meant there.
That was like
I don't
fully
think what is
out
meant...
of left field right there.
This is the agreeable work chapter, by the way, is what this chapter is. A chapter about better working conditions, basically. And yes, it's a conquest of bread. It is a piece of anarcho-communist literature from, what's the year this was made? It is
18 something, right?
It is hang on, the Conquest of Bread, 1892. So this is from 1892, which is why you get random things here, like the drudge of humanity, woman.
If I had social media still, I would change my name to Drudge of Humanity.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. This is my identity, Drudge of Humanity. I suspect he may clarify what he meant in this next section.
I sure hope he will.
We're gonna have to go on a break before we get to it.
Yeah, we're gonna have to do that.
Me too.
Before we do that, well, I guess actually once we come back, I don't remember what you read that made me that prompted me to think of this, but I want to share basically a thing that makes me think we might have even more than 8 hours a day on luxuries in the post-revolutionary world.
Okay, yeah, that sounds good. I'll just also clarify for Ree that what we're doing is we're reading through as much of this book as possible while also making pies in Fable 3, because in order for us to get the most possible positive social policies while also not dying when the bad thing comes to get us, we have to make a bunch of money.
Like a lot of money.
We
Like
have to
way
make
too
like
much money.
7 million at least, probably more. So
Probably
we've been
more. We're
making
not even
pies for
through all
like
the policies. We're not done making policy
yeah, we're not even through all the
decisions.
policies. We are
Uh,
currently at 6.7 of 7 until we get to go play the game again and then come back and make more pies later when we know how much more money we'll need.
yeah, how many chapters are in
But
this again? Fen wants to know what's
so the amount of
progress.
chapters that are in this, and I'll just jump back. There are 17 chapters in this. We are
We're so
halfway through
close.
chapter 10.
We're so
We likely
close.
won't. Some of these last chapters are long, is what I'll say.
Yeah, okay.
We likely won't. We're like, I would say, about 2/3 of the way through.
Objections. Oh, I want to get to objections.
Yeah, objections will be fun when we get to it. All of this is to say, we won't get to the end of this book, but we will get close to the end of it, and maybe we'll be able to finish it or something at some point. But Fable 3 is a wild game with really weird politics, so we have been further complicating those politics with anarcho-communist reading.
You know, the one thing they got right was defunding the police gives us a lot more money to put into other things.
Yeah, that's the only, like, what the game considers evil social
Right,
policy we've
yeah.
taken was where we basically made it so that the police have no money.
Yeah.
And then everything else has just been implement social policies, implement social policies, implement social policies. So we were like a lot of money in debt.
Yes, truly. So many money.
But we can make pies to just make all that money back. Okay.
All right.
We're going to go on break. We'll be back in a few minutes to continue the conquest of pies. Yes, Fenrir, please explain the whole thing while we are away if you want.
All right, be right back.
All right, back in a bit.
Hello.
Welcome back to the Conquest of Pies, which is that we're about to, I think, embark on our last section for the moment until we have to come back to it, likely for at least one more session, if not more. Who knows?
Yeah.
By the end of this game, how much money they expect us to make in order to be good people.
A lot of money. See, Brianna, what Fable 3 says is in order to be a good person, you just have to be a millionaire.
It's true. And what Kropotkin says is, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you. Again, Kropotkin would hate Fable 3.
I want...
If you could bring it back for a dinner party, you're having him play Fable 3, huh?
No, even better. I'm having him react to our playthrough of Fable 3.
What is this social media that you're talking about?
Is that your Kropotkin's voice?
Yeah, it was a bad one. We're not.
Can you just read the rest of the book in the Kropotkin's voice?
No, I will not. But Kropotkin Reacts YouTube channel. Highlights posted to TikTok. I need it. Is
that a thing? Does YouTube just get posted to TikTok now?
All the time. All the time.
Wow. I love that all social media is just cross-pollination.
And then TikTok get reposted to Instagram Reels or Lives or whatever, Instagram, whatever they call it. I think it's Reels.
Like
I
stories
think it's Instagram Reels.
or something?
No, it's Reels, I think is what they call it.
Okay.
And then those get reposted to Facebook.
Okay.
That's a new pipeline now that Tumblr's dead.
Tumblr isn't dead.
Okay. Now that Tumblr is now having to be revived.
I have heard that Tumblr has a resurgence happening.
It does, but it was dead. So they had to develop a new pipeline.
That's fair. All right. Yes.
All right, shall we get farther into agreeable work?
Yeah.
Section 2 of agreeable work. A society regenerated by the revolution will make domestic slavery disappear. This last form of slavery, perhaps the most tenacious, because it is also the most ancient. Only it will not come about in the way dreamt of by nor in the manner often imagined by authoritarian communists. Phalansteries are repugnant to millions of human beings. The most reserved man certainly feels the necessity of meeting his fellows for the purpose of common work, which becomes the more attractive the more he feels himself a part of an immense whole. But it is not so for the hours of leisure, reserved for rest and intimacy. The phalanstery and the familystery. I'm googling what phalanstery is.
Can you Google how to pronounce it? I'm curious. I
uh,
thought you were trying to say Philistine, and I was like, that can't be right.
type of building designed for a self-contained utopian community, ideally
Oh,
consisting of 500 to 2,000 people working together for mutual benefit.
wow, that's
Built in New
so
York in the 19th century
specific.
by Charles Fourier.
Huh.
Interesting.
Huh.
Okay.
We need to bring this
Um,
thought back. I feel like a lot of the time we talk about this kind of thing without a word for it.
I believe that he's saying that in fact they suck.
Oh. Well,
Let's
maybe we
keep
should
reading.
bring it back. We should reinvent the philanthropy. I can't even say it. Maybe we do need a new word. Never mind, I'm wrong.
The phalanstery and the familystery do not take this into account, or else they endeavor to supply this need by artificial groupings. A phalanstery, which is in fact nothing but an immense hotel, can please some, and even all at a certain period of their life, but the great mass prefers family life of the future, be it understood. They prefer isolated apartments, Normans and Anglo-Saxons even going so far as to prefer houses of from 6 to 8 rooms, in which the family or an agglomeration of friends can live apart. Sometimes a phalanstery is a necessity, but it would be hateful were it the general rule. Isolation, alternating with time spent in society, is the normal desire of human nature. This is why one of the greatest tortures in prison is the impossibility of isolation, much as solitary confinement becomes torture in its turn when not alternated with hours of social life. As to considerations of economy, which are sometimes laid stress on in favor of phalansteries, they are those of a petty tradesman. The most important economy, the only reasonable one, is to make life pleasant for all, because the man who is satisfied with his life produces infinitely more than the man who curses his surroundings. um, I'm going to read out the note here. It seems that the communists of young Icaria had understood the importance of a free choice in their daily relations apart from work. The ideal of religious communists has always been to have meals in common. It is by meals in common that early Christians manifested their adhesion to Christianity. Communion is still a vestige of it. Young Icarians had given up this religious tradition. They dined in a common dining room, but at small separate tables, at which they sat according to the attractions of the moment. The communists of Amana have each their house and dine at home while taking the provisions at will at the communal stores. Other socialists reject the phalanstery. But when you ask them how domestic work can be organized, they answer, each can do his own work. My wife manages the house. The wives of bourgeois will do as much. And if it is a bourgeois playing at socialism who speaks, he will add with a gracious smile to his wife, is it not true, darling, that you would do without a servant in a socialist society? You would work like the wife of our good comrade Paul, or the wife of John the carpenter. Servant or wife, man always reckons on woman to do the housework. But woman, too, at last claims her share in the emancipation of humanity. She no longer wants to be the beast of burden of the house. She considers it sufficient work to give many years of her life to the rearing of her children. She no longer wants to be the cook, the mender, the sweeper of the house. And, owing to American women taking the lead in obtaining their claims, there's a general complaint of the dearth of women who will condescend to domestic work in the United States. My lady prefers art, politics, literature, or the gaming tables. As to the work girls, they are few. Those who consent to submit to apron slavery and servants are only found with difficulty in the States. Consequently, the solution, a very simple one, is pointed out by life itself. Machinery undertakes 3/4 of the household cares. You black your boots and you know how ridiculous this work is. What can be more stupid than rubbing a boot 20 or 30 times with a brush? A tenth of the European population must be compelled to sell itself in exchange for a miserable shelter and insufficient food. And woman must consider herself a slave in order that millions of her sex should go through this performance every morning. But hairdressers have already machines for brushing glossy or woolly hairs of heads of hair. Why should we not apply then the same principle to the other extremity? So it has been done, and nowadays the machine for blacking boots is in general use in big American and European hotels. Its use is spreading outside hotels. In large English schools where the pupils are boarding in the houses of the teachers, it has been found easier to have one single establishment which undertakes to brush 1,000 pairs of boots every morning. As to washing up, where can we find a housewife who is not a horror of this long and dirty work that is usually done by hand solely because the work of the domestic slave is of no account? In America, they do better. There are already a number of cities in which hot water is conveyed to the houses, as cold water is in Europe. Under these conditions, the problem was a simple one, and a woman, Mrs. Cochran, solved it. Her machine washes 12 dozen plates or dishes, wipes them and dries them in less than 3 minutes. A factory in Illinois manufactures these machines and sells them at a price within reach of the average middle-class purse. And why should not small households send their crockery to an establishment as well as their boots? It is even probable that two functions, brushing and washing up, will be undertaken by the same association. Cleaning, rubbing the skin off your hands when washing and wringing linen, sweeping floors and brushing carpets, thereby raising clouds of dust which afterwards occasion much trouble to dislodge from the places where they have settled down. All this work is still done because woman remains a slave, but it tends to disappear as it can be infinitely better done by machinery. Machines of all kinds will be introduced into households, and the distribution of motor power in private houses will enable people to work them without muscular effort. Such machines cost little to manufacture. If we still pay very much for them, it is because they are not in general use, and chiefly because an exorbitant tax is levied upon every machine by the gentleman who wishes to live in grand style and who have speculated on land, raw material, manufacture, sale, patents, and duties. But emancipation from domestic toil will not be brought about by small machines only, that's for sure. Households are emerging from their present state of isolation. They begin to associate with other households to do in common what they did separately. In fact, in the future, we shall not have a brushing machine, a machine for washing up plates, a third for washing linen, and so on in each house. To the future, on the contrary, belongs the common heating apparatus that sends heat into each room of the whole district and spares the lighting of fires. It is already so in a few American cities. A great central furnace supplies all houses and all rooms with hot water, which circulates in pipes, and to regulate the temperature you need only turn a tap. And should you care to have a blazing fire in any particular room, you can light the gas specially supplied for heating purposes from a central reservoir. All the immense work of cleaning chimneys and keeping up fires, and woman knows what time it takes, is disappearing. Candles, lamps, and even gas have had their day. There are entire cities in which it is sufficient to press a button for light to burst forth. And indeed, it is a simple question of economy and of knowledge to give yourself the luxury of electric light. And lastly, also in America, they speak of forming societies for the almost complete suppression of household work. It would only be necessary to create a department for each block of houses. A cart would come to each door and take the boots to be blacked, the crockery to be washed up, the linen to be washed, the small things to be mended, if it were worthwhile, the carpets to be brushed, and the next morning would bring back the things entrusted to it all well cleaned. A few hours later, your hot coffee and your eggs, done to a nicety, would appear on your table. It is a fact that between 12 and 2 o'clock, there are more than 20 million Americans and as many Englishmen who eat roast beef or mutton, boiled pork, potatoes, and a seasonable vegetable. And at the lowest figure, 8 million fires burn during 2 or 3 hours to roast this meat and cook these vegetables. 8 million women spend their time to prepare this meal that perhaps consists at most of 10 different dishes. 50 fires burn, wrote an American woman the other day, where one would suffice. Dine at home at your own table with your children if you like, but only think yourself, why should these 50 women waste their whole morning to prepare a few cups of coffee and a simple meal? Why 50 fires when 2 people in one single fire would suffice to cook all these pieces of meat and all these vegetables? Choose your own beef or mutton to be roasted if you are particular. Season the vegetables to your taste if you prefer a particular sauce, but have a single kitchen with a single fire and organize it as beautifully as you are able to. Why has woman's work never been of any account? Why in every family are the mother and 3 or 4 servants obliged to spend so much time at what pertains to cooking? Because those who want to emancipate mankind have not included women in their dream of emancipation and considers it beneath their superior masculine dignity to think, quote unquote, of those kitchen arrangements, which they have laid on the shoulders of that drudge woman. To emancipate woman is not only to open the gates of the university, the law courts, or the parliaments. For her, for the quote emancipated woman will always throw domestic toil onto another woman. To emancipate woman is to free her from the brutalizing toil of kitchen and washhouse. It is to organize your household in such a way as to enable her to rear her children, if she be so minded, while still retaining sufficient leisure to take her share of social life. It will come to pass. As we have said, things are already improving. Only let us fully understand that a revolution, intoxicated with the beautiful words liberty, equality, solidarity, would not be a revolution if it maintained slavery at home. Half humanity subjected to the slavery of the hearth would still have to rebel against the other half.
You know?
There's so much to talk about here.
I have like two things at the top of my mind. I am curious about your
I need to
things
drink
though.
water, so go ahead.
Okay, I'm gonna say like short in case I like forget my two things because I feel like my mind is going right now. One is tech industry, and then the one that I was thinking about beforehand earlier in the chapter. Oh, shoot, it's escaping me. Um, oh, why does this happen? Why is my brain like this? Um. Can you remind me the beginning of the chapter a bit? We talked about.
Um,
Oh yeah, no, I got it. I got it. I got it. The Philistines. What? Remind me what it was? The
Philanisteries.
Philanisteries. So I feel like he's kind of describing a Philanistary in a lot of ways. Is an apartment not a Philanistary if you have like an apartment district that is like community focused? Like
I
if
I suspect Philanisteries are much more communal, are like no like individual spaces.
see, but
I'll do some
yeah,
Googling
okay.
about it.
Okay. Like can a Philanistary have an individual space? If so, like I think it sounds good to have like what was it, 5,000 people or something as like sort of the bounds. Like 5,000 people is like a nice size of like being able to like to commit to doing work in a way that like you can make food for like hundreds of people in a single day with like two people. I know because I've done it.
Hmm.
Um
Hmm.
you can like cook for thousands of people every day with like a couple dozen people maybe. And if you rotate those people, then you know, like you have basically like exactly what he's saying, which is like why is like 40% of people cooking. Though I do disagree. He said like cooking the same 10 meals and I was like I'm so glad we live in a world where or maybe at least a city that has
I
like
don't want to
more
eat boiled
variety.
pork, buddy. I don't.
I truly don't. I truly do not want to eat that. But yeah, anyways, that's that you can make different things, but anyway, that was my point is like I feel like that sounds
It
good
looks like a
actually.
Philanistery
Well, there we go. Yeah.
can
I
involve
feel
private
like
apartments, but it
oh
still involves a
perfect.
lot of everything else is communal.
That's kind of like what I want though. Like at least cuz I've told you. I've talked
Couldn't be
multiple
me.
times. Okay. I mean, I feel like there's lots of people who would want to like live in an apartment complex with like a communal kitchen and a communal like I don't know, like laundry that you don't have to pay $2 for every wash and load for. Um, you
Hmm.
know, I would.
It
I'm one of those
looks.
people.
I feel like a Philanistery could become a cult really quickly.
Maybe I just want to live in a cult. Maybe I want to join a cult. Have you ever
Don't join a
considered
cult.
this, Brianna? That I should
Don't join
just
a
join
cult.
a cult?
I don't think
Maybe
it
I should start a
inherently is
cult.
going to become a cult. I think there's a possibility of a good phalanstery. But this specific thing on Wikipedia talking about the structure says outsiders, the other, with ballrooms and halls for meetings with outsiders who had to pay a fee to visit and
Mm.
meet the people of the phalanx community.
Okay, no.
Dangerous.
Mm,
Dangerous.
yeah. See, the thing that I would imagine is like it's not so much like I imagine like people would come and go as their needs arise. Like, and when you have like 5,000 people, like at that point, people are probably coming and going. But the mass, like the like I don't know, like for the most part, there would be new people in the small community, and then like some people would leave also. Like I feel like it would
Mm-hmm.
stay pretty consistently. Like I would say under 10% of people would be like less than a year at the Phalanistery. Um
Mm-hmm.
and not whatever this cult thing is where it's like outsiders are banned. No, fuck that.
Mm-hmm.
That is culty. I fully agree with that.
Yeah, totally. In the chat, Fenrir says this section Kropotkin takes a stab at feminism. Absolutely true. It's mixed. The mixed results.
Yeah. They took a
Kropotkin saw the
stab
way
at it, though.
technology was going was like fully automated luxury space communism, but capitalism says no. Yeah, I want
True.
to. I'll circle back to that in a sec.
Yeah, I
Um,
also
I
wanted to
want
talk on that.
yeah, I want individual kitchen, what is usable for most any meal, but then a communal kitchen for cook bigger meals, cook with more specialized equipment, etc. Like I'd love a huge kitchen with a proofer and deck ovens. I don't
Yeah,
need that in my home, but I do want to make something at 2 a.m. without leaving my apartment. Yes, I know what you mean.
yeah, yeah. I can get behind this. This makes total sense to me. Absolutely.
I do think I am curious about how like because it's interesting because he compares it to a hotel, which is kind of what this sounds like to me a little bit.
Yeah,
Um I'm curious about how. I mean, obviously, there's a big difference in terms of like the labor performed in a hotel, obviously,
right.
but
Yeah,
structurally, I wonder how similar it is.
yeah.
Anyway, you wanted to talk about the tech industry in relation to all this.
Oh my god. Just that he like at one point he was like what was he saying? He was like the only way you could sell these technologies at a high price is if the people who were selling them wish to be rich. And it's like you're fucking right, Kropotkins, and oh
Yeah,
boy do they ever.
yeah. Mm-hmm. It's also so fascinating to me to link all of this kind of talk of look how technology has fixed the home. And the reason I use that voice is because this is the 1950s. This is the 1960s. This is exactly Kropotkin nails it, which is like this is what people believe is going to happen.
Right.
And
Right.
you know where we are in 2022? We have all the cool technologies. We're in fact getting more new cool technologies every day,
Now
and
you
women still
can
do the
unlock your
majority.
car with your watch or something.
Right, and women still do the majority of the household labor to
Yep.
such a absurd degree, as they also work jobs now.
Yeah.
Congrats, we made it worse. Like, I think if you were to tell Kropotkin, don't worry, like it turns out women can work now, he'd be like, great, but they also still do the majority of the household labor. He's like, oh, has technology not fixed that? No, in fact, technology has just created more tasks to do.
For the most part, I think I would give Kropotkin's feminist analysis a solid 6 out of 10.
I would give it a 6 out of 10. I think you're right. I think there's a lot here that like is really interesting to
I
think
mean, it's
about, but I
pretty
also
good.
think
Like, I don't know, a 6 out of 10 for like 100 and what is this? 140 years later or something, 130 years later. That's pretty good like in terms of like cultural relevancy.
mhm. I think it's so fascinating how this section kind of really shows to me that Kropotkin is a lot more optimistic than he ought to be in regards to what the future will hold inherently.
Right. Yeah, he is
Um,
the optimist. And you know what? I can get behind that. I'm the optimist too.
in many ways, he's like, in many ways, he's like, oh, yes, at this point, we could even do with like only 4 or 5 hours worked, and that's true. In fact, we can do better than that, right? The
Yeah. Oh, right.
potential is higher. The potential for society is better than Kropotkin can imagine, but the actual reality is worse than he ever thought it would be.
Yeah. I wanted to talk about the way technology could truly cut down time spent on like the I guess like the requirements of life, which is like growing food and whatnot. Can you type in and link in the chat a website called New Leaf Farms, spelled N-U Leaf Farms? Um, so
Yeah,
my
absolutely.
coworker was telling me about this. And so this is a vertical farm, but they do vertical farming a little differently, where normal vertical farming wastes a lot of water and whatnot, and like generally it's like an interesting idea, but like it's still pretty inefficient. This place, my coworker like basically met the person who was behind it. Thank you. And they recycle 95% of the water that gets used, because of it's a closed system. And so there's like carbon in the air that they capture, and then they turn that, and they've like made roses where, in order to like make I think it was 1 liter of rose oil, normally you need to use 10,000 pounds of roses. But they've like, the way that like they've used science to basically like stimulate the way that roses grow, um produces like a heightened amount of natural growth of this specific whatever that you need to get out of it. So instead of 10,000, you can use 100 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
And like this is the kind of like thing. And guess how many hours per week of man hours this takes to upkeep?
How many?
Per week. Per week. I just take a stab at it.
To upkeep this per week, like per
Per week.
person?
Just total. Man hours total per week.
Uh, I guess like, I don't know, 35?
4.
4. Fuck me.
It's so automated. Like, it's
Ah,
so automated that the labor that happens is mostly harvesting. It's mostly harvesting.
yeah.
It's mostly like packaging up and like sending to people. Because you can buy like plants from them. You can buy oil from them. Um, and I know I'm doing free advertisement, but I'm doing this because like from the vibe that I got from my coworker is like these people are kind of in this for the like the research side of it, not for the
Mm-hmm.
profit side of it. They're
Yeah.
like selling things in order to sustain funding the research, but like um yeah, like
Yeah.
this is like, if you, and this is like what was it? It was like 1.4 acres of vertical farming in this way can make 70 acres of food.
Jeez.
If you could make 70 acres of food, yeah, it's in Calgary. My coworker is south of Calgary in Okotoks. And so um if you can like spend that little time on that much food yield, that wait, like we're done with like spending time on food essentially. Like, and like to be clear,
Yeah.
I also like brought this up with my coworker who was very into this kind of thing, is, and it was why he was sharing this with me. You can't grow things like corn in vertical farming.
Right.
Um
Only some things can be grown in this way.
right. But like think about like, I mean, this is new technology. Vertical farming is, I think my coworker said, less than like a decade, if not 2 decades old, and we're already finding ways to make closed system um uh closed systems that use 95% recycled water. They like, so what they do is they capture the water in the air and then they test it for like any germs or whatnot, And if it's like not safe, they dump it. But if it is safe, they recycle it. So it's like also like you can tell if a food is going to be like, like I don't know, how you get like food recalls sometimes. You could know ahead of time if your like crop was potentially unhealthy.
Yeah.
Anyways, this is my rant on like sometimes we have the technology already where we could truly be doing nothing, where we
Yeah.
could truly like be like working 4 hours a week
Once
and
it's
be
up and running.
good. Yeah, of course, of course, of course, of course. Like,
Yeah. But I'm with
it
you, yes.
if the goal was okay, we're gonna build like one of these in every like local town, every like whatnot. And if you do that, all of your meals, all of your travel will be subsidized by a government who wants to like, or even like shit, by people who want to see this come to fruition. I'd be on it. I'd be on it. I'd
Yeah.
be there
No,
building.
I'm with you. God, this is wild. Yeah, Fenrir, just thinking about how much farmland could be returned to pre-colonial ecologies. Yes,
Mm.
100%.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the only other thing I want to say, yeah, you're totally
A
correct
better
on this.
burger is
The only other,
possible.
a better burger is possible. Um, the only other thing I want to say about this section is, it's interesting that him talking about like, oh, someone comes and like shines your boots in the morning, like you collects all the
Right.
boots and they get shined by a machine and all this. Very funny. But also like milkmen used to be a thing. Like for like just
Oh,
they just
true.
used to exist. Now the only way to like get things delivered to your house like regularly is a subscription model that exploits like three
Yeah.
different industries.
Yeah.
Um
Oh
at
God, I'm
minimum,
laughing because it's so
right?
sad.
Like
Oh.
the thing is, a lot of what he discusses, there were versions of it that were created and implemented, and then that we lost them. And then we
Yeah.
lost them because it wasn't making enough money. Or,
Yeah.
in some cases with milk, right? Not everyone drinks milk anymore. Milk is not as
Right.
reasonable a thing for just everyone to be getting. But like there are foods, there are pieces, there are things that would make sense to deliver every morning or every day or every week regularly, just paid through with for like a small amount or paid through taxes or just done by the government in general, like through an opt-out model or something.
Mm-hmm.
And instead what we have are subscriptions models that are based in we have like and that are super exploitative, that rely on gig labor, that
Yeah.
rely on exploiting, again, all these different industries.
Yeah.
They built it and then they broke it.
I
Uh, they
mean,
built it. They built it in a capitalist way, and
mm,
then they said you can't even have this.
yeah. Think about, didn't the US almost lose their fucking mail system a couple years ago?
Yeah,
Because it
Trump
wasn't
was
making.
looking to basically annihilate it, especially
Yeah.
in smaller areas. Yes,
Which
even the
is
public utilities exist.
wild.
A thing of public discourse is should libraries exist,
Right.
right?
Uh,
That is entering public discourse now. That is a
again?
thing.
Wait, again? This happens like every 2 years.
It does happen every 2 years, but like, I don't think there's a legitimate calls, but like, libraries have certainly been defunded to a
Oh,
substantial degree, certainly more
yeah.
than the police. Um, and schools, right? Schools, right?
Yeah.
Is like everything to do with education, everything to do
Yeah.
with what should a school be, what should a school teach, all of these. And yeah, Reese says, yeah, they wanted to sabotage it in order to justify
Right.
privatizing.
Yeah.
Yes, that is always the way.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, curious what our new local municipal conservative
Uh,
government decides to privatize. Curious and
yeah.
distraught.
What do you mean conservative? They say they're centrist. That's satire, to be clear.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Fucking ABC Cardi. Ass butt
uh,
conservatives. Okay.
that's so mature.
Um
Why did I laugh?
They're the ass butt conservative party. This is my new thing I'm calling them.
Great.
Um So it is 9:36.
Yeah.
How are we doing on pies?
We have 7.26 million gold.
Excellent. Our next chapter is like 3 sections. So what I would suggest maybe is maybe we call it here for now, and we will certainly have to come back to this.
Yeah,
We
almost
might get, I
certainly.
think, one more session in of actual gameplay next week, and
I think maybe
then
multiple.
maybe
Maybe.
multiple. We'll see. But we'll get some gameplay in, and then we will certainly come back to this. This is not the last time we will be reading the Conquest of Bread, because they'll say that in order to implement social policies like, you know, don't allow murder to be legal, don't allow the purge to happen,
Right.
every week, you have to pay 6.4 million gold.
You're joking.
Because
But this game fucking would.
that's how this game's logic is. If you don't want the purge to happen, you have to pay us. You have to pay 6.4 million gold, and then we'll have to
It's
come
like,
back here.
wait, no, we don't want the purge. Wait, we, the government, will fund not having the purge.
Yes, exactly.
Oh, God. Oh, my God.
Yeah, and we'll
Yeah.
work out how much is needed. We'll try and get close up to the end of days, and then we'll make a whole bunch of money through Pi.
Yeah.
Through the power of Pi.
We'll basically
And
get
we're
right
gonna
up
save
until
the
the
world.
final policy, so we know how much money we need, and then we're gonna do the damn thing.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, great.
Yeah, I'm just gonna go until I fuck up, which might be like this pie. It wasn't this pie. Well, maybe it's this pie. I just need to know what the final pie is. It's the final pie.
So folks, if you want to read any of it yourself, I mean, we will come back to this. I promise you we will come back to this. And I'm excited to come back to it, in fact. It's gonna be a good time. This this book is really fun to read. Especially when we make fun of it, because Kropotkin can't predict the future like a fool.
Until he can, until he does.
The things that most distress me about this is when he's not even trying to predict the future, he's just describing the present, and it's the same as our life. And it makes me want to die. And sometimes it is slightly different because we have slight differences. Again, we outsource our child labor now.
Great.
As has been said.
Yeah.
But there are some things. So tell me, Claire.
Yeah.
As you have made your final pie of this section, what's our total at this point in the game?
Oh. God, I've run into this issue before. I have to like open the pie thing again. Oh wait, no, that's the total made. All right, let's look at how much money we have. We have 7,310,414. No, we didn't. I don't think we ever figured out what the treasury
We
was.
will figure out what the treasury is next time, because we're gonna deposit all this shit
we'll
in the treasury. We're gonna have to figure it out. I have the directions. I will know how to guide us.
Cool.
There.
Well, I'm excited to say that next time Bonk will be back for blood.
Next week. More blood.
Yeah. All right. Good night, everyone.
More blood.
Yeah.
Good blood.